Welcome to the deep dive.
Hello.
So we have quite something here today. It's a transcript from Hadath's YouTube channel.
Right, and it covers some really, really intense developments reported pretty much as they were happening.
Exactly. And our mission really is just to unpack this specific source for you. Pull out the key things being reported at that moment.
Okay, let's get into it.
What jumps out immediately is the speed, right? The source just throws you into breaking news.
Absolutely. Sirens activating across Israel. That's the first big thing.
Yeah, mentions Jerusalem specifically, but then clarifies it was much wider, many Israeli cities.
And it wasn't just the old school sirens either.
Yeah.
The source pointed out notifications coming through phone apps too.
Right, that mix of old and new tech for alerts. Interesting detail.
And then almost right away, the Israeli defense minister declaring this special status for the home front.
Okay, special status. What did the source say that actually meant, practically speaking?
Well, based on the context in the report, it's a clear sign of heightened readiness.
Like preparing for incoming.
Exactly. The source links it to the possibility of missiles heading towards Israel, essentially framing it, as potentially a state of war situation.
And the reason given in the source for all this sudden activity.
A big one.
Yeah.
The source directly connects those sirens back to reports that the Israeli Air Force was, at that very moment, carrying out raids inside Iran.
Wow. So the alerts in Israel were reported as a direct result of actions in Iran.
That's the link the source makes, yeah.
Yep.
Which naturally brings up the question of what exactly was being targeted in Iran.
Was the source clear on that?
Not entirely,
Hmm.
especially in those first moments. It mentioned Israeli Air Force attacks began in Iranian territory.
But the specific targets.
Yeah.
Maybe nuclear sites, maybe something else that wasn't pinned down.
Correct. According to the report, those details weren't confirmed right then.
But they did report actual impacts happen.
Oh, yeah. The transcript specifically mentions reports coming in of, I think, 4 or 5 explosions in Tehran. So actual strikes apparently underway in the capital city as the report was unfolding.
And the source mentioned something about the Israeli perspective on this, like preemptive.
Yes, it did touch on that. That the Israeli view reported was that this might be a preemptive strike.
But preempting what exactly? Was the source clear on the rationale?
Again, a bit uncertain in the initial report. Whether it was based on, say, intelligence about an imminent Iranian attack or some other reason. The source indicated that wasn't fully laid out yet.
Okay. And back in Israel, besides the sirens and the special status, what else was happening according to the source? Directives for civilians.
Definitely. The source detailed instructions coming from the Israeli army. Things like no school activities, no large gatherings allowed.
Restrictions on work, too.
Yes. Non-essential work was also prohibited. People were told, basically, follow the Army's guidelines through official channels and media.
It seems like a very comprehensive shutdown.
It does. And what's interesting is how the source explained why the sirens were going off in Israel while the reported strikes were happening, far away in Iran.
Why was that, according to the report?
It was framed as a precaution for the Israelis, telling them to get to shelters or protected spaces immediately.
Because of the potential for retaliation.
Precisely. Because fast missiles could potentially be launched by Iran in response. So it was described essentially as a state of war measure for people's safety. Stay inside, stay protected.
And the source also mentioned Israel's defenses being on high alert.
Absolutely. Stated that with strikes like these reported, Israeli air defenses would be fully active. It specifically named systems like Patriot and Arrow 3.
Missile interceptors.
Right, which the source noted are deployed across the country. It highlights that defensive readiness.
And this wasn't entirely unprecedented, the source noted, referencing past incidents.
Correct. Al-Hadath's report apparently mentioned previous times Iran had launched ballistic missiles, noting that most were intercepted, often with U.S. help, sometimes others like the UK involved.
So that defensive capability is a known factor being discussed even as offensive operations were reportedly underway.
Exactly. And the timing.
Yeah.
The source clarified that the defense minister's special status's announcement came after the military campaign in Iran had reportedly already started.
Okay, so pulling back a bit from all the specific events reported in the source, the alerts, the status change, the strikes, the defenses, what's the big picture takeaway from this Al-Hadath transcript?
I think it's really that snapshot of just how incredibly fast information and reactions move in these kinds of situations.
Yeah, the speed is remarkable. You have sirens going off via phone apps because of actions reported miles away.
And almost instantly, reports of explosions in a distant capital city. The source really captures that breathless, real-time feel of how high-stakes events are reported.
Which leads to a really important question, something for you listening to consider.
How does this sheer speed and the very nature of this kind of immediate reporting actually influence the situation itself for the people on the ground caught up in it?
How does the reporting shape the reality as it unfolds? Something to think about.
Definitely.
Okay, that's it for this deep dive into the source.